And I think a lot of people get confused. We talked about this earlier, which is the concept of genetic determinism, meaning like I have this problem, therefore it's over. And I think this is, I'm reading Dr. David Buss's evolutionary psychology textbook right now, and he goes over the concept of like calluses. So calluses there's a genetic proclivity in Homo sapiens to develop calluses. When you rub certain parts of your skin, it develops more thicker skin. But calluses have to have an external stimulus in order for them to develop. They don't develop on their own. And so this is the same kind of situation where you talk about these genetic proclivities, but there needs to be some sort of external stimulus in order for some of them to express. Some of them never express, and then the ones that are like horrible mismatches to the world that we live in, full of estrogens and high fructose corn syrup, those have horrible mismatches. And then you see, but like overall, because the span of life is increasing, people are like, well, this isn't that big of a problem. But individually, we're seeing people dying of things that there's no need for them to die of.
Yeah, so we're living longer on average, but the average American gets their first chronic disease at 55.
That one's crazy, yeah.
They have 2 at 65.
Yeah.
And the last 15 years is spent in treatment. So is that living?
Right.
Right? Versus the person in Okinawa who's playing with their great-grandchildren at 100.
Yeah.
That's health span. That's what you should. Lifespan, a number of years on this planet, 66% of American personal bankruptcies are due to healthcare costs.
Yeah.
So you work your whole life to just try and stay alive by selling your home at the end, right? So that is not health. So the years that we're living is not an indicator. It's how healthy are we in those years. And for the first time ever, there's been a 3-year drop in the average American life expectancy. 3 years, not 3 days, 3 months, which that in itself would have been a major red alert. 3-year drop. And it's not because we're not living as long. It's because in the last few years, too many young people are dying. So it's skewing the data.
Yeah.
And we can get into a whole other conversation about why. But people have no immune systems now, and they're dying young. Right? They're getting all these complex cancers that are unstoppable, turbo cancers as they call them. But to your point, that's what you said is exactly the truth that everyone should know. Chronic disease is entirely optional. It is a question of here's my genome, here's the jobs that my body does well, here's the jobs my body doesn't do well. Now, based on the environment, nutrition, lifestyle choices I make, my path is now determined. I can be on this trajectory. It's entirely my choice. Now, we don't make those choices. We don't know the first bit. How are we wired? And we also don't believe that this is true. We're not taught that. We're taught, go do whatever you want. And when you break something, it's a doctor's job to figure it out.
Yeah.
Versus don't ever break yourself. So it's exactly what you said. Chronic disease is caused. It's not innate. Yes, there's propensity based on poor genetic hardware.
Genetic propensity inside of you, external stimulus that can trigger. So it's almost like Schrodinger's genetics.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You have to have both or it's impossible.
Yeah. So can you, just so that the viewer can leave with a few things here, I want to know what are the first steps. So I want to get a DNA test to know that I can't process starches this well. Yeah. Where can I go to do that simply? And then some in general things like, again, the steam room has been very helpful for me. Like I think recently in the cold plunge, especially for inflammation in my joints. Even though I work out every day, I'm still 47. I still my back old injuries. I can still feel them. The cold plunge has been fantastic. What are some things that you can recommend in general for people to get tested and then for people to get treatment?
Yeah, so I would say I built a genetic research company, but what I learned is for everyone to benefit from it, the test is not enough. The interpretation is what people need.
Okay.
Right? Data is dumb unless you know what question to ask it. You have to know what insights you can derive.
Yeah.
So for this purpose, I literally stepped away from the company I created, and we hired a CEO to turn it into a healthcare company, and now I coach people, right? And I figured that, that again creates limitations. So how many people can I possibly coach? So I host a free webinar every single week. Go to my Instagram. There's a link in my bio. Sign up there. Come to the webinar, and you're going to find exactly how I can help you learn how to interpret your DNA as opposed to give you a report about your DNA.
Yeah.
Why? The DNA that you're born with is the same DNA you die with. So if I learn how to read this instruction manual, it's going to apply to every decision I ever have to make.
I'm glad you said that because I talked to Ty Lopez about this. The epigenetic thing is a thing, but it's not as big as some people make it out to be. Some people are legitimately like, if I meditate, then my children will meditate more. Like they're really thinking they're, I had bad energy and trauma in my life and I'm passing this on to my children. And I'm like, I don't think I think there's small changes.
Yeah.
For sure, every day I go out in the sun, the radiation from the sun is slightly changing my DNA, but I don't think it's to the level that some people are vastly, because they don't like genetic determinism.
Yeah.
And so the way for them to get around genetic determinism is epigenetics. Good energy now makes my genetics better that I pass on to my kids. And I'm like, that's not real.
So there's two halves of that.
Yeah.
if you have a significant stimulus,
Yeah.
a trauma, your epigenome will start to express somewhat semi-permanently,
Yeah.
and you will pass that on.
Yeah.
It gets passed on for about 7 generations. And we know this because the grandchildren of the Holocaust survivors are all told that they're neurotic when they actually have a highly engaged nervous systems, thinking that they're still in fight or flight.
Okay.
Right? And that's happening. You can measure it. It's happening epigenetically. 7 generations.
Could that be an in utero thing that's being transmitted, or is that? Do you think it's actual change in DNA?
So it's literally, it happens to you, and when it happens to you, you pass it on. So when you experience, so epigenetic expression is, here's the gene that I have, the version good, medium, bad.
Yeah.
Add an input. I ate some broccoli or I breathed some pollution. That gene speeds up or slows down temporarily, so long as the input is there. The one area where we know it's somewhat permanent is the nervous system and trauma.
Okay.
Because that's such an important thing. We're designed to not die. We're designed to survive.
Sure.
And some threat, don't know what the threat is, but trauma equals threat. Children should know. Grandchildren should know. Don't ever go to that bush again.
Yeah.
Right? So it gets hardwired in, but it's 7 generations, then it gets relieved. So there's some truth to that, but where the thing that the Tai Lopez of the world are applying it, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
They're saying that, yeah, I have a gene around cardiovascular disease, but I'm not going to get it because I'm meditating and changing my epigenetic expression. No, what you need to change is that you have bad hardware, which means here's a supplement that will give you good hardware. Here's the foods that won't cause inflammation. Here's the foods that will. So yes, epigenetics, but it's not just be happy and be peaceful. It's what's your nutrition?
Yeah.
What's your environment? What are you exposed to? And what is your lifestyle? How do you sleep? What are your stress levels? What are your relationships? These are the 3 buckets of what you need to manage once you discover what's broken in your genome.